Many of America's biggest corporations seem undeterred by the Texas Attorney General's threat of civil penalties for paying abortion-related travel expenses. Dozens of companies doubled down over the weekend and said they would pay for employees to travel for the procedure. Here is the Texas Attorney General on the program Friday after the Supreme Court's ruling.
Concept for us, these corporations deciding to pay for people to go get their abortions. And we're going to be looking at whether the language covers at least the civil side, and that's obviously what we can deal with. And so, these penalties could even be for corporations over $100,000 per violation. So we'll see. We're looking at that literally as we speak.
Social justice aspect of corporations just got very real, and it's unclear how shareholders and boards of directors will feel about massive fines in the interests of their executive social justice search. Batya Ungar-Sargon is here. Well, it's sort of a natural extension, right, for big corporations that if they are going to protest Ron DeSantis in Florida, then it makes sense to pay for people to travel for abortions.
Yeah, I mean, the thing to keep in mind is that, a $100,000 fine to a company like Disney pales in comparison to what it would cost them to actually give reasonable maternity leave to a whole bunch of employees, right? So, they're thinking about it like we're making off like bandits here, right? All you have to do is pay for someone to go to New York and get an abortion, right? It's just like pure capital. It's not even woke capital. It's just capital.
Is that really what you think it is an economic decision more than a political decision, that they want to be seen as liberal and progressive and thoughtful to their employees? The difference really between having having a woman go out on maternity leave and paying for an abortion, is it the dollar value or the publicity they're going to get out of it?
Well, I think that's the whole point, right? There's no daylight between those two things, right? Wokeness and capitalism go hand in hand. They go really well together. What we've seen is a cultural revolution in corporate America to where they are always looking to left-wing activists and far left people on Twitter to set the tone of what they're willing to do. And, but all of that comes at the expense of like actual economic equity, right? What I want to see is the right create a culture in corporations to counter the woke narrative, not along cultural terms, but along economic terms. Okay, you want to be the party of, families. You want to be the party of being pro-natalist. You want to be the party of women having babies. Put your money where your mouth is. Don't be like the woke side that uses virtue signaling to get out of paying a living wage. Be the side that says, we are the side of the American family. We are the side of paying a man a living wage so he can support a family and a woman can stay home and raise their kids.
I'm thinking about the Hobby Lobby case, right? This was the case of a chain of stores privately owned that wouldn't pay for certain contraceptives that they viewed as against their religious beliefs. They won that case. Do we divide America in the same way the abortion map is divided about big public corporations and then also the very non-woke corporations in Texas and those states, and then the very woke corporations in California?
Unfortunately, the polarization exists at the top, right? So anyone who can make money or get power off of polarization is going to be doing that and leaning heavily into that. So that includes politicians, corporations, and the media. When you look at the American people, and this is something that you have stressed over and over and over, so much of that polarization just evaporates, and I'm talking about 87% of Americans agree that if the woman's life is at risk, if there's rape or incest, that, there should be exceptions to abortion, including 70% of Republicans who support exceptions to rape and incest, right? Only 34% of Americans support any kind of abortion after the first trimester. So there's just like vast agreement among Americans about where they want abortion law to be. And instead of representing the vast 70% of Americans, you have one party advocating for no limit on abortions whatsoever, and the other party saying, you're going to go to prison if you fall and have a miscarriage accidentally after 6 weeks. And I think that the corporations fall very much into that, pushing the boundary, trying to pick one of those sides.
To your point, though, if this all comes down to naked capitalism, boards of directors and especially executives, because they make big money, are very good at chasing the last dollar. If we are to believe America is moving further to the right because Americans are moving further to the right, where is the American people putting their money where their mouth is?
A lot of corporations think it's still 2020, and it's not. It's 2022. And I think that they're in for a rude awakening because the American people are not going to be told what to do by corporations that are being driven by naked desire for capital.
When you say they're not going to be, are we to expect that at some point there is going to be companies that come from the right, so to speak? And I think about that because they're a little bit in conflict, right? We're going to pay a living wage, but we're also going to be pro-life.
Yeah, I mean, yes, of course, right? Like, so how do you do that? I mean, that seems to me to be if the right wants to actually not just benefit from how terrible the left is, but actually offer Americans an alternative vision. That alternative vision is not what we've had thus far, which is Republicans defending corporations' right to steal from their employees and pay them starvation wages, right? It's actually having a vision for the future, which is paying people a living wage and thus encouraging them to expand their families.
I almost started thinking about Chick-fil-A at this moment, with a little Chick-fil-A sauce and number one. All right. Good talking to you, Batya. Thank you.
Thanks, Leland.
All right. Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.